What is capitalism? Many people today claim that we live in capitalism, that businesses control the world, and that it is this that leads to poverty, wage enslavement, poor working conditions, and in many cases war. The general mainstream imagines capitalism as little men in top hats with long mustaches running around in tuxedos carrying big bags that have dollar signs on them, that businessmen are generally corrupt, and that if only the government bureaucrats would regulate a little better, that things would magically fall into order. This, of course, assumes that most businesses today are privately owned and operated, completely independent of government, and that there is a dichotomy between government officials and businessmen, that businesses are bad and the government officials are good. This is a false assumption, to say the least, which you will come to understand better in a few short seconds. But first we must define capitalism. Capitalism, as defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is an economic system characterized by private ownership of capital goods, by investments that are determined by private decision, and by prices, production, and the distribution of goods that are determined mainly by competition in a free market. Capitalism is an economic system based on voluntary, peaceful interactions and agreements handled outside the scope of government force. That is, an economic system in which goods are traded through persuasion, not coercion. The question we must ask ourselves is, can we properly define the conditions we are living under today as capitalism? Are all investments determined by private decisions? Are prices determined by market equilibrium, what some have called harmonization? Is production privately decided upon? Or is there political central planning involved? It doesn't take one long to come to the conclusion that what humans live under today has nothing to do with capitalism. Everywhere you look, government intervention plays a part in our lives. Taxes are everywhere you turn. Subsidies run rampant. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of trade regulations, not to mention all the military occupations, which all militaries are government controlled. Micromanagement failure after micromanagement failure from all governments all over the world. Governments all across the globe have racked up debts, enslaving our children to debt slavery before they even open their eyes for the first time. In America, the SEC backed up Bernie Madoff, giving him the green light, the rubber stamp, for well over 15, not months, but years. The government's SEC helped build the largest individual Ponzi scheme in history. Not only that, Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, run completely by government coercion and entrapment. If you don't contribute to the Ponzi scheme, they throw you in a cage. Today, Native Americans are trapped to 85+% unemployment rates because of government welfare. And we can only be so lucky to see a few of them breaking away from the 5-year economic plans they must submit to the Department of Interior. These elected bureaucrats can't even balance a budget. If anything, they're trying to find and improve on ways to increase their theft and abuse on you. And look at the military-industrial complex, what I call the Great Mirage. Governments all over the world create private corporate logos to mask their no-bid contracts, to make it appear as though corporations are the only one to blame, and that government is the answer. Governments have basically diverted attention away from their coercion onto corporate logos to distract the bulk of the population for attacking the source of the real problem. The fact that these corporate logos are not truly free market based, and that they are all government subsidized, funded, and controlled. You can see now why I call it the Great Mirage. Of course, today, those who pay attention see the entire system for what it is. That big business and government are in bed with each other and that they both thrive off the other. Government is nothing but politicians and corporate lobbyists working together, fighting with government force for their advantage over others, not for a free and fairer market. For them, the relationship is symbiotic. For us, it's parasitical. There is only one free market, just as there is only one answer for 2 plus 2. You can have freer markets that vary in different coercive policies, but keep the political system intact, and they will always lead back to tyranny. The smallest governments always turn out the largest. In a real free market, in anarchy, corporations would never be given special advantages. No subsidies, no protectionism, no barriers to entry to their industry, all could compete. There would be no tax loopholes, no individual asset protection by the government, no corporate lobbyists, and no large-scale government-perpetuated wars. After all, if the government officials had to pay for their own wars instead of pawning off the costs to our grandchildren, the wars would never be fought in the first place. In this free market capitalism, in this anarchy, there are no genocides. There are no holocausts, no apartheids, no democides, no more slavery. Real capitalism is the economic system of anarchy, and that is a good thing. Don't be afraid to cheer on and spread real freedom. It cuts off the violent political power structure to everyone. No more victimless crimes, no more Federal Reserves, no more military-industrial complex, no more Kim Jong-ils, no more Hugo Chavez's, no more Obamas, no more Bush and Cheney's, no more oligarchs and tyrants ever again. You cannot contain this beast. Hacking at its branches will only allow it to grow back faster, like a malignant tumor that was only partially removed. You must abolish its roots, eradicate the seed, and that can only come through education towards freeing minds. Free market capitalism is only possible in anarchy, and anarchy is only possible through capitalism. Anarcho-Capitalism, the lack of state compulsion, is not only the most peaceful and prosperous system, but it is the only ethical system.